I'm excited to talk about my sponsors today. Gaye Lisbey's $1 Million Arbitrage Group. Amazing, amazing group. This is a teacher. Gaye was a teacher. She is a teacher still. You need to learn. This is the type of environment you want to be in because she's going to help you understand why. And I think that's the hardest part of this business is understanding why. Why is the red one popular when the green one isn't? Well, there's usually a reason. And what Gaye does is probably parse that better than anybody, and she'll explain the reasons for those things. I think that's really powerful. Yes, she puts out a list. You're going to get use of that list if you get in the group. Now, here's the deal. The group isn't always open, right? So you get on the waiting list, and you can join the waiting list through my link. Doesn't cost you anything to get on a waiting list. And if you like her service, which I find that most people do, and that's why there's not so many openings, you'll be with her for a long time. And so it's amazingfreedom.com. She's part of Andy Slamon's group. Amazingfreedom.com/momentum, and you're going to get in the waiting list. That's all I can get you on right now. You can use my name and see if that gets you anywhere. But what I like about what they teach in that group are the things that are going on, the current things. I've seen a lot of stuff going on about stores going out of business. Well, here's where an opportunity is. Here's why you want to do this. Hey, be cautious about this. With Toys R Us coming out, you got to think about this. And that's the learning that you need to do. And Gaye is better than anybody else I've seen. So amazingfreedom.com/momentum will get you to the waiting list. Then hopefully it can get you in the group, and then you're going to see me in there, and we can chat anytime you're ready. Karen Locker's group, Solutions, 4 Ecommerce. Solutions4ecommerce.com/momentum. It's going to save you $50. Karen's our account manager. We recommend her to everyone because she's done so well for us. I mean, that's quite frankly the reason we've been paying her for the last few years, but she's become an important part of our team. Her and her team are so involved in our account. I just see the emails coming back and forth. Hey, we did this for you. I just saw 2 listings today, and I'm like, wait a second. Why did they show up? I didn't put any listings up. They got set off to the side by Amazon, and they reactivated them for me. You know what I mean? That's the stuff that just happens when you have a strong team, and I can't recommend Karen enough. If you use my code Momentum, Karen pays me. I don't want to hide that. Of course, we all know that. But you're going to save $50, and it's a great opportunity to really, really build out your team with somebody you can trust. That's why I recommend them. So Solutions for Ecommerce, Solutions, 4 Ecommerce.com/momentum. It's going to save you $50. Oh, and by the way, she's going to do an inventory health report. Why is that important? Well, guess what? Fees are going up. Is your inventory health number declining like ours is? Well, here's why, and here's what they can do. What I like is I get a spreadsheet from them, and it says, hey, here's a bunch of inventory. Here's what we recommend. And I'm like, yep. Delete, return to us, blah, 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 whatever it is, or destroy, and it just happens. That's what I like. The other thing that I have Karen help me with a lot is creating new listings. We do a lot of the research ourselves. We upload our images, and then boom, magically the listing goes live, and I don't have to worry about it. Those are the services that Karen offers. Can't recommend her enough. Solutions4ecommerce.com/momentum. Save $50. Use my code. You save $50 a month every single month, and it's a great service. Plus, you get that free inventory health report. I think it's a really powerful way. So I'm so excited how many people have been joining her because I see it, and I'm excited because the messages I get from people are saying, hey, this is great. I finally feel like I can focus on something else because Karen and her team are watching this for me, and I highly recommend her. Next up is Sellerlabs and Scope. I almost said it wrong. It's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing when you sit back and think about, hey, I want to get this product up, and it's similar to this product, and that product does well. Well, therefore, if that product does well, they have the right keywords. They have chosen things correctly. So guess what? Use Scope, and you can see all that stuff, and that's what the most powerful thing in the world is, to copy somebody who's done it right. That's what you want to take advantage of that, right? I mean, it's fair to see, and so therefore you could take and apply it to your listing and immediately get that same benefit. That's what Scope does for me. Sellerlabs.com/momentum. It's going to save you $50 on the service. Oh, by the way, it's free to try. So sign up, try it, and say, oh, this is how it's done. Boom. And then the light's going to go on, and you're going to be like, man, I can get my products out there. I just can't wait. Can't wait. Sellerlabs.com/momentum. The other day, I bought another domain. Yes, I bought another domain. It's almost like I'm admitting guilt. But it's because I had an idea, and it was something that was a pretty good idea. I think it's going to go pretty far. And so what do? I go to trygodaddy.com/momentum and save 30%. So domains aren't very expensive. You get a few services. It adds up a little bit. And I usually buy 3 years. I usually buy privacy. By the way, I recommend that too. Buy that. It's not that much money, but when you can save 30%, it makes it that much sweeter. And it makes it easier when you're buying domains, and especially if you buy a bunch of domains. I am a domain collector, and so I do tend to do that. But that 30% makes it a lot easier. And I use GoDaddy because what I like is I can pop in an address I'm thinking, and it'll say, nope, try this version or try this extension. And then boom, there it is. Hey, you better hurry before it goes away. And they're right, And so try godaddy.com/momentum, save 30%. Also, I want to mention about Grasshopper. Who was I just talking to? Somebody the other day, and they were like, oh yeah, I use this company called Grasshopper. I'm like, dude, did you buy it through my link and save 30%? Hello? No, they missed that. So save 30%. It's trygrasshopper.com/momentum. No surprise there, but you're going to save 30%. And what the real cool part about that is they're using it for their private label business, and it gives them virtually a second phone on their current phone without having to get another number. They can make up a vanity number. They don't have to go and do all the grief and sign long contracts. Pretty easy stuff. And so if you're creating a brand that you want to identify, you want to look professional, you want to look like a real company, Grasshopper's a great tool. It's an app you put on your existing phone, and boom, you now have a customer service department. You now have a sales department. You now have a manufacturing division. You could forward it to somebody else. You can have it go to different voicemails, different departments, and it's all included. So try grasshopper.com/momentum, save 30%.
Welcome to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast, where we focus on the people, the products, and the process of e-commerce selling today. Here's your host, Stephen Peterson.
Welcome back to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast. This is episode 312, Trevor Morris. You can hear in my voice, I'm very excited. I'm telling you, what a great interview because, and I'm going to describe Trevor, and I can't imagine he'll get offended by it. He is just a fly below the radar, put your head down, do the work type of guy. Well-educated, smart as a whip, just quiet. If there's a classroom, he's not raising his hand every single time to show he's smartest. He's back there taking it all in and figuring it out. And to me, as I said after him and I got off the call, is he's pretty much most guys, most ladies. We look to the outliers and thinking that, we should be them. But I'm telling you, after this call, my bet is you're going to say, I wish I was him. Because let me tell you, he is one impressive individual, just a wonderful person and a very kind soul, and pretty humble about his success. And those are all good formulas for long-term success. Let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome back to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast. Very excited about today's guest because, again, I love my position in life because I get to watch people over time, and to see this gentleman just figure it out and expand with his head down. He's real calm, real chill, and yet he's been developing, and it's just so cool to see him explode. And I'm very excited for all of us. Trevor Morris. Welcome, Trevor.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, I think it's fair. I don't think that's an unfair description. You generally, you're below the line. You don't stick your head out very often, right? You're kind of quiet, kind of keep to yourself, right. Put your head down, do the work, right? Is that fair?
That's fair.
And yet, you just got up on stage for the first time in your life. Was that the first time ever?
I believe so, yeah, in front of a crowd.
Oh, my goodness. All right, we're going to get to that. So I remember meeting you, and who was with you?
That was my uncle. You talking about Rocky Mountain?
Yeah. Yeah. It was your uncle.
Yes.
And your uncle at that time had a massive quantity of stuff to sell, right? Is that kind of the story I remember?
Yeah, for the most part.
And he was selling it, I think, on eBay or locally, or what was he doing at the time?
Yeah. So he had several storage units full of stuff that he had bought when he did eBay years ago.
And he just
And
had
he
it all
just,
set, and he was looking for advice on how to grow it.
right.
How come you didn't take the lead? Because I thought about that. I mean, you have a perfect opportunity where you and him could have partnered. You could have done all these different things. But I got the vibe that wasn't, you knew that's not the direction you want to go. Is that fair in my observation?
Yeah, that's fair. I had taken some stuff when I was in college from him and listed it. And, for me and my business, eBay is great. But for me, Amazon was better.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it.
And so I just saw, Amazon was where I should focus my time and my energy. So for me at that particular time, it wasn't worth it.
And I think here's an important part. You know that because you've done it and you realize, hey, this is definitely more my lane. And I think more people need to do it. Now, that's not downplaying. There are some people that try Amazon. I think of Jay and Ryan of Scavenger Life, and Jay and I've talked, and he's not interested at all in it. I mean, they tried it and they're like, it's not what they want. They want to sell unique things that interest them. They want to stay interested. So that's what's so cool is that they could choose their way and you could choose yours. So what did you go to college for?
I went to college for maritime administration, which is basically logistics for the ocean.
Okay.
It's like your container ships, bulk, stuff like that.
So how's the ocean next to your house?
I don't live next to an ocean anymore.
I was going to say, I don't think you live next to an ocean.
Yeah, no, so I went to school down in Galveston, Texas. Then I lived in Houston for about 2 years. And then my wife and I moved up to the north of Dallas area here about a year ago.
And what was it about the ocean because, I used to remember hearing people, I'm going to be a marine biologist, right? Because they were into, sea life and that kind of thing. That was it. Or they were going to go into Coast Guard because that was a good way to get girls. But, it was always at a beach and that kind of thing. Who wants to be this ocean? What was the title again?
It's the title of the degree plan is Maritime Administration.
Maritime Administration.
It's ocean logistics, if you want to call it that.
What led you there? What did you say? Did you see it somewhere? Did you have a family member in it? What would lead you there?
Well, growing up, I was always, moving stuff around, kind of organizing stuff, and I'm very good at I can see stuff. Like, say I see a pallet, and I'm like, oh man, I think that can go up on top of this racking, and I could save space, or, stacking boxes into a cargo, one of those cargo trailers from U-Haul.
You're a Tetris fan. You're a Tetris guy.
Yeah, I'm very good at that type of stuff, and I love logistics, and so I was like, hey, I want to go to A&M, but A&M moved the logistics branch of their university to Galveston because it's one of the very few satellite campuses. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to Galveston A&M, and so that's where I ended up going. That's the only school I applied for. So.
And that was it. But what was just because, did you love the water too? Was that part of it? Or because you could do the same thing for warehousing, right? Material management or whatever it would be for warehousing. Why the water?
I really don't know.
Okay. That's fair.
The ocean's nice. I like fishing, but
okay. Just interesting to me. It's why people choose what they do. Usually there's something in their background. Okay. All right. So you studied this. Did you graduate?
I did graduate, yes.
Okay. And so what is the typical person who gets that degree? What career path do they have?
Well, so that's kind of the beauty. It specializes in ocean, but they also teach you about land and air, all the different types of logistics. Ooh. So a lot of people will go out and they'll be a freight forwarder. They could go in the brokerage area, dealing with ships. For me, I worked at a barge company. which if people don't know what that is, it's basically a smaller version of a ship, but it doesn't have an engine or anything. Most don't. It's pushed or pulled by a tugboat.
And they carry materials, right? They could do containers, but they also could do coal. Like I've seen barges of coal and open material, right?
Right. Like the one I worked for was a lot of oil and gas.
Oh, cool.
So, there's so many different areas you can go into. I mean, you can go and work at the port if you wanted to, or you could go work for a trucking company. I worked for a logistics company that booked truckloads. So that's helped me. Now that I'm moving trucks, I know, okay, no, that lane's not right. It shouldn't cost me that much. Or I know how to deal with truck drivers because I did it for several months. So
you could relate to all that. So that is a huge advantage, because I see that being a stopping point for a lot of people, because, you're dealing with, several different companies, and there are lots of rules, right? There are rules there, and whether they're necessary or not, somebody's benefiting is usually how I say it. They're there, and they're very rigid, and sometimes they enforce them, sometimes they don't. But when they do, you're in trouble if you're not correct. Fair?
Right.
So you've got that background, so that's obviously useful as you scale up. Do you think, again, working at that level, seeing that scale, because you saw scale early on in your life, is that one of the things that's attractive to you about Amazon, is the ability to move volume like that, as opposed to the one-offs like on an eBay?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things, why it's good. I mean, it's good to do like retail arbitrage, but like most people started out doing retail arbitrage. That's what I did for the longest time. And then, about a year or two ago, I started seeing a shift, and I'm like, okay, retail's still going to be good. It's still going to be there, but to scale my business, what do I need to do? And I started looking into wholesale, which wholesale is good, but it can be very competitive. It can be hard to get with suppliers. And then I started looking at the overstock industry and closeouts. And so that's been my main focus for about a year now.
So you're buying truckloads or pallet loads, I guess you could be any of the above, of closeouts, probably not shelf pills, but closeouts over production. I always tell people, when they start up, I don't care what business is, when they're making Doritos, when they start up the Dorito line, they start making them and they don't have enough powder on them. So they sell them as seconds or what have you. In the old days, they used to feed them to animals. Now they actually, because the quality's there, the quality, they sell them to third-party companies that, put their packaging on it and make a lot of money, right? And so when that happens, though, they, at least in my experience, now tell me if I'm wrong, is there's usually about a 10% overrun when a manufacturer is making something, right? They usually say plus or minus 10% is what, at least when I've had stuff manufactured. And that, if you don't take that 10%, they're going to sell it to somebody. Has that been your experience? Yeah,
so, whenever I say close out stuff like that, a lot of people are thinking liquidation. I get a pallet of just a bunch of random junk.
Shelf pulls, returns, that kind of stuff.
Right. All my stuff is as if I was buying it wholesale from, say, Hasbro. It's all case boxed, brand new, first run items. It's not leftovers. It's first of the line. So, like for instance, Toys R Us, they went bankrupt, right? They had already placed orders. We'll just use Hasbro because everyone knows Hasbro. They had already placed orders with Hasbro. Well, Hasbro, their manufacturing is now like, okay, well, we have X amount of these units. We got to sell them off because we can't sell them anywhere. Because Walmart's already placed their order. Target's already got their order. So they sell it to the vendors that I buy from.
And these are manifested, right? These are distributors or whatever, but these are manifested that you could prove ownership, that you meet all the requirements.
Yes. Yeah, they're awesome as distributors and everything. So I'm getting products that I can buy as little as 200 to 500 units of a single SKU, all the way up to, a SKU we bought 9,000 of them.
Wow.
because the pricing was there. You know, it was $1.50 landed, and we're selling them for $13 to $15 on Amazon. Selling about so my uncle and I were business partners, and we split everything 50-50. So I'm selling about 200 units of those a month, and he's doing about the same. So it just depends, you know, on what our buy cost is. Obviously, if it costs us $10, we're probably not going to buy 9,000 units of them.
Well, this is really smart. I mean, before everybody jumps in and uses the Google, these are not easy relationships to get. These are probably cherished and very well protected, so please don't share any of them. All right.
I
Yeah, you're good at that, right? But it's fair. That stuff, you know, you and I in a pre-call were talking about relationships and where they come from. How does that fall into your lap? You know, do you just start out there talking to people on a plane? I saw somebody talking, I think it was Garland mentioning that he was talking to some great guy on a plane, just happened to be sitting next to him. Or in my case, it was my landlord who ended up connecting me with somebody else. Mm-hmm. How do you get to those level of relationships?
You know, I think a lot of it, you know, like I've said before, you know, the Lord has really helped me in my business. And I think a lot of it, I give him a lot of credit for it because, you know, it's just about relationships. So on these closeouts, I was getting vendors from ASD. Yes, you can go to ASD and you can get some of the vendors I started out with. There is money there. It's just very hard.
It's competitive. It's hard because it's competitive, right? And I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah,
right?
It's competitive, and you know, sometimes their pricing is a little higher. Well, at my church, I've known a buyer for a major retail chain for pretty much all my life. He's known me, and you know, one day he's like, "Man, it sounds like your business is really growing. What are you doing?" And I kind of told him about it. He said, I want to introduce you to some of the vendors I buy from. Maybe you guys can work some stuff out."
No kidding.
And, you know, at first they're like, "No, we're not going to take any Amazon sellers. We don't want any." And he's just like, "No, listen, just hear me out. Just give them a try." So when I went there and spoke with them, you know, my uncle and I placed a pretty large order, and they're like, "Wow, this person is serious.
This is real."
Yeah, this is real. It's not, because a lot of times they don't like dealing with Amazon sellers because they place a case or two.
Right.
And we're like, "Oh, we'll buy all that. We'll buy all this." So, you know, with that, I was like, okay, he's going out and sticking his neck on the line for me. You know, we're going to try our best to do, you know, place a good amount of order and basically build that relationship. So now I've built that relationship up. You know, it would be probably very difficult to near impossible for another online seller to come in because they're like, "Well, we already had a couple. We don't need any more." So, you know, like you were talking about the connections, the relationships, it's just that relationship and connection that I've had. And then he introduced me. And I think that's how it is on any part of our business.
I think it's so. And here's one more thing, though. You said that this gentleman has known you for a long period of time. So he's watching you in that period of time. He's looking for consistent. As I always tell you to people, how do you find people that aren't crazy or whatever? You watch them over time and you look for consistency because ultimately it'll come out, right? And so to me, I think it's very exciting that I don't want to use this phrase. It sounds so stupid. I'm sorry. Your good behavior for that period of time. Him as seeing that whatever that behavior was over time, and then he comes along and rewards you for that. That's got to be a very, very cool feeling. I mean, have you thought about that? Why you? There it is.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's cool.
And you know, it goes back to the old saying, you never know who's watching.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it could be somebody in your family that you had no idea has some connection, and they're like, "Hey," you know, one day they come to you and say, "Hey, I know you've been doing this Amazon thing or whatever you're doing," and they just say, "Hey, I would like to offer you this," or "You want to go 50-50 in a deal and I'll be your bank." You know, there's all sorts of different things that can happen, and I know it's true because I have a neighbor. He's like, oh, I know the person for this company. I'm like, wow, that's pretty significant. A person that starts a major multi-billion-dollar company, he's good friends with.
1 degree.
I would have never known that. So you never know who's watching, and you never know who knows who.
So how does a conversation start? I mean, because if I go with my friends and we start, we go out or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, how's business, Stephen? I'll be like, start talking. About 6th or 7th minute, because I like to talk, their eyes roll back in the back of their head, and they're like, oh, my God, he's not going to stop, is he? And then my wife will usually whack me and say, Steve, they don't care.
Right.
They don't care. How do you approach that? How do those conversations come out for you?
I think it's typical with every Amazon seller. You start to talk about yourself and stuff. But then, like the toy buyer, I was like, okay, I'm going to stop talking about Amazon and be like, okay, so you buy toys. How are you buying? Are you buying them from Hasbro directly? He's like, oh, well, I do this, but I also buy them from other people. And then you just kind of segue into it and you go, oh, well, what are these other people? Like, what do they do? And then you just start asking questions about their business or what their job is. And then I think at the end of the day, you go, oh, is that something like I've always been looking, because that was kind of how, these relationships kind of started, because I was like, so you're buying it from these people at liquidation pricing, but it's still brand new factory case packed? He's like, yes, that's how we're able to offer discounts in our store, like a Ross, TJ Maxx, stuff like that, And I'm like, that's interesting. And I said, so is there any way I could get in with those people, or are you not willing to share that with me? He's like, well, since we don't really compete, and I know you, I don't mind introducing you.
Wow.
So, just something like that, sometimes we get so caught up and like, oh man, look, I'm doing so good. I'm doing this. Spend some time and ask about what they do. Because I would have never known, and I might not even have these relationships I have now if I didn't ask, from their perspective and their side of things. And then obviously once you show interest into their business, then they go, okay, so now tell me more about Amazon. What do you do? And then you share it with them, and they're more apt to, as if you're trading back and forth, maybe I talk for 5 minutes, they talk for 5 minutes, then they're not going to get as bored, because they'll be like, okay, now it's my turn to share what I do. And, like we were at one of the vendors he introduced me to the day of, we walk into the vendor, he introduced me, I do my searching around, I'm buying stuff. Well, then there's one product, and from his perspective on a retail side, he goes, man, I think this would be a great Black Friday ad. And I'm like, okay, well, what price are you trying to do? I'm trying to do it for this price. Okay. I said, this is what it's doing on Amazon. This is the rank. And of course, he has no idea what any of this means. So I have to explain. I say, this is selling very good, has very good ratings. He's like, man, so I'm going to be selling it. I'll pick a number. I'm going to be selling it at $50, and it's selling for $80 on Amazon. He's like, I'm still going to be undercutting Amazon. That's a good deal. And so I helped him make a buying decision while we're sitting right there in front of the vendor. And then from me helping him and help the vendor at the same time, the vendor's like, keep in mind, I had just met this vendor about an hour ago. They go, listen, we would normally charge you $45 a unit for this item. We'll only charge you $35. We'll give you his pricing.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, like I just met you an hour ago because I helped on this sale and he introduced me to you. I just knocked $10 off this item. And we did very well with that item at Christmas time.
And did they do well with theirs? Do you know? Or
yes, yeah. Oh, he's like, I blew through all mine on Black Friday.
So think about that. So you added value. Now, have you read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie?
I have not.
Okay. So there's a point here. I promise you I'm going to make a point. No, because it's so on point. I've read the book a bunch of times. Anybody who's done any of that stuff has read that book, right? Old dudes. Us old dudes. Right. That was one of the things. I just found it. I'm moving around my warehouse stuff, and I found the CDs, and it's like 3 or 4 CDs. So I literally have them playing in my truck, and I listen to them on my way to the warehouse, on my way home. I don't really drive much else, right? Mm-hmm. And so much of it is close your lips and listen and to listen from the other person's point of view. Find out what their pain points are and help them. And all of a sudden, you are now in a different position. And you weren't helping him with an expectation. You were generally helping him. You had no expectations for that $10 discount.
Right.
And yet it comes. And it's so prevalent. So the power tip here, Steve's going to give you all a power tip. Please go and buy Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Download it. I'm sure you can download it for free on the internet somewhere. It's old and it's dated. But the principles, you just heard Trevor explain exactly the principles. Pay attention to their point of view and then add value, and you win. Dude, that's very, very impressive for a young guy to figure that out. Very impressive. Very cool. When you take those relationships now, I mean, have they developed to the point now where they're like, hey, Trevor, we've got these other things that might, because you bought this, I can't find anything. I got a can of sardines on my desk, probably a bad example. Because you bought this can of sardines, we think you might also like these cans of mackerel. That's the best example I can come up with. Has that happened for you yet?
Yeah, it's happened a little bit. Like I said, these companies are mainly selling to like big brick and mortar stores.
Okay.
So Amazon to them is kind of, they understand it, but it's still kind of foreign.
Because you're not the big buyer that like a Ross or a TJ Maxx would be at this point yet.
Yeah, so they come in and they're looking for very specific things. They understand that market. Now they have come to me and say, "Hey, you bought this item. We just got this item in. Are you interested?" And like one of the vendors that we met, we're on his higher buyer side because we bought so much from him. And so he'll say, hey, I got this deal coming in. I'm going to split it 4 ways. And, I'm giving you a call before I send out the email on if you want in on this deal.
And so at that point, you get an option to choose 1, 2, 3, or 4 parts of that deal?
Exactly. So I could choose 1, none, or I could take it all.
No kidding.
Now, most of the time, like he's on the phone with me and then his employee is on the phone with someone else or, whatever it might be. And so I've had it on the phone, like I'm sitting there on the phone like, okay, yeah, this person just took it and it's another Amazon seller. And like, okay, so that person's selling it. Okay, I've sold with alongside them. They're a good person to sell along. And I can make a decision like, okay, well, I know he's taking one spot. I'm going to take another spot. Maybe my uncle's going to take another spot. That's 3 out of 4. Who's going to take the 4th spot? I don't know. And then I've also had it to where they look it up on Amazon and go, hey, this guy is already selling this item. And they call me up and say, hey, we're going to have 2,000 or 3,000 of these coming in. Are you interested in purchasing more of them? And I make the decision, yes or no. And so
did you have to share your store name with them? Is that part of the prerequisites?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah, they just want to make sure that you're not tanking the product, because if you buy a product and then you just start dumping it, they're not going to sell to you anymore because it doesn't look good on the brand.
Right, and then Ross would be like, "Are you kidding me? I can't."
Exactly.
And then they're stuck with them.
Exactly. Yeah.
How does it work with? So when you buy it, you're stuck with it. I mean, would they ever take it back, or has that ever come up yet?
Yeah, so this is a good lesson for people to learn. I've learned a lot of stuff the hard way.
I've got a warehouse full of hard way.
Yeah, right. So, whenever we placed a large order the first time around, we kind of got a little over our head because we were thinking in the retail arbitrage mindset where you might get, 10 to 100 of a unit. And we're now buying thousands. And so we overbought on our first one. We're like, dude, this is going to take us 3 years to run through all this inventory. So most of it we took the hit on. And then a lot of it before it ever shipped, we're like, hey, listen, we're really sorry. This is our first time ever doing something of this scale and magnitude. We've learned our lesson and we're not going to do this again. Would you consider taking back half of the order to sell it to somebody else? and they might say yes, and they might say no.
But that's real.
So it just goes based off your, like, and, whenever I was speaking to them, I said, listen, I know we just met. I don't want to ruin our relationship. I said, if we need to take it, we will take it. I said, but if you have somebody else that'd be interested in it, if you wouldn't mind taking it back, that would really help us out. And these are not your typical just medium-sized, distributors. These are massive distributors, and they're like, oh, no problem. I can turn around and sell this tomorrow to Ross or something.
How does that change the relationship when you see them bend for you? Because let's face it, that person helped you out enormously. We all know that we're lucky to be able to buy it and sell it, right? So we all know that. But now it went even deeper, where they kind of bailed you out of a bad choice on your side, right? We all make them.
Right.
How does that change the relationship with that company? I mean, are you going to fall all over them and do whatever it takes to keep them, happy? Is that where the give and take goes?
Yeah, I think there is a form of give and take. So obviously for us, we're like, okay, wow, this company's helping us out. We're going to help them out when the time comes. And so a good example of that was we made the mistakes in August of last year. Well, the New York toy show was February this year. We went to them, and on some of the products, I'm like, okay, we're making good money. And I was like, what's the lowest you could do if we bought them all? Oh, we could go down this amount. I said, no, let's not even worry about that. So I'll pay you what you're asking for. And he's like, you sure? I said, yeah, you helped me on these products over here when we made that mistake. I said, I'll go ahead and pay your asking price. I won't negotiate you down in pricing, so that way you make more money for helping the mistake that we made earlier.
You never make it on Shark Tank. They would eat you alive, right? You have to negotiate the best price, Trevor. It's all about business. It's all about profit every single time. You've got to win, 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 win at all costs.
Right.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah. So a lot of people, that's their mentality is, oh, I got to beat them down on price. I'm buying private label from China. I got to beat them down. Well, what you don't know is what deal is going to come along next that you could go down further on. If you're saving $2,000 right now on a deal, but you're still making money at their buy cost, it's not like you're losing money. Yeah, you're not getting that extra amount, but what if they didn't cancel that order? I'd be stuck with that, and I wouldn't even be able to buy these deals because my cash would still be tied up.
Right. I just followed another guy who said something similar, and he's like, look, I want to pay them so much money that they go nowhere else because they're like, this is ridiculous. Why would I walk away from this? In this scenario, you got to remember, that's a company that needs to turn a profit. They got to pay those employees. That big company has huge overhead.
Exactly.
So they must turn a profit or they're not going to. I mean, I'm sure in the end that they look at the whole purchase and they show a profit or loss on it, period, right? And so when you help them lose money, that's not a good experience on their part, and that will hurt the relationship. Love it. Exactly. Powerful stuff. So how does Trevor Morris go up on stage? I was thinking about this. And, I know Joy Packard put together a conference in Texas, which is close to home, I guess. But
correct.
How do you pull it out of you to go up? Because you are quiet and shy, I guess I would say, reserved, at least my impressions of meeting you once or twice. How do you get past that to go up? Is it because of the confidence of figuring out a winning strategy for business? I mean, where does that come from?
I'm not going to say I wasn't nervous.
I think everybody's nervous. Even the biggest speakers are nervous, so that's fair.
So, when she asked me to do it, I was like, okay, it's pretty close. I can drive down there, no big deal. And she just wanted me to share my story and then provide some tips or whatever. And so since I had started a meetup down there, I had told my story in a faster pace, not as detailed, almost every month, because when new people would come in, they'd ask, how I got started. And I explained it all. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. It's just a conference. I'll go up there and I'll speak. And, Honestly, when I got up there and I started talking, I think there's something different between when you love what you're doing and when you don't like it. It's so much easier. I got up there and I just started talking about, my experiences, my failures, stuff like this. And, I look back at them now and I just laugh at them. And I just go, wow, that's crazy how that mistake brought me to this area. And when you start talking, time flew by. I was like, oh, that was a quick 45 minutes. And, if I help somebody, great. That's all I was really there for. It's not like I'm selling a product or anything else.
Right. You weren't there but you did win, didn't you? I mean, yeah. And I think that's what people have to realize, that by giving with no expectation, you didn't go there thinking you were going to, like you said, you had nothing to sell. What were you going to get? More wholesale accounts or, no, right? Of course not.
Right.
But by giving, tell us what you got.
So, I got lots of stuff from that conference. Just meeting with the different people. The networking was really wonderful. And I ended up meeting another seller there who basically has his own prep center. And he was speaking, and I'm like, huh. And, Joy Packer did her talk on outsourcing. Well, for me, I'm scared to outsource. I think I'm like a lot of entrepreneurs. Oh, I got to do everything in-house. I got to do it in-house. I don't trust somebody else to do it. And I can tell you, I'm living and breathing that right now. I just outsourced all the the closeouts and stuff I'm buying, all those toys. I just outsourced that whole, I guess you could call it a division, of my business. That whole area of my business, I will no longer touch because of the connection that I made at this conference with this guy. And, we worked out rates together and everything else. And so my goal is that now when I buy it from my vendor, it ships straight to him. He stores it and he ships it into Amazon on my behalf.
And if you did not, let's close that loop because I think this is so important. Yep. If not, you would have put out a question in one of the groups. You would have said, hey, does anybody know of a prep center, kind of in my area? And you would have heard from a whole bunch of people, right? And then you would have heard, if you put that person's name out there, you would have said, hey, has anybody had experience with Steve's Prep Center, my name? And you'll hear the good and the bad. Because it'll be both, right? Because there's good and there's bad, right? Everybody has different experiences. They have different expectations, that kind of thing. And so then you're like, well, geez, I don't know what to do, right? You're stuck, right? You don't know how to move. And so by meeting them face to face and taking that conversation one-on-one, him hearing you be honest and candid about what you're doing, that changes things, doesn't it? Your relationship is not just a business relationship. Fair?
Fair. And to kind of piggyback off that, I had gone around to many prep centers and I was like, this is what I'm doing, yada, yada, yada. And their storage fees, because obviously they got to make money, everything like that. It's not free, but they were too high for me. So I was actually on the verge of building another warehouse on my property that was going to be like 2,500 to 3,000 square feet just for storage of all the toys that I buy, because I buy by pallets or truckloads. So I was on the verge of doing that, and I really wanted to outsource it, but it was going to cost me way more than what I could pay monthly for a barn.
Okay, well, let's stop there. Yeah, because I don't want to lose this point too, because I just think it's important. So you've done the math, what it would cost for you to build out your own, and how much money is that going to tie up for you, right?
Right.
That's inventory you don't have the money to buy. Fair?
Exactly.
So you've done that math and you sat back and said, is there another way? You were looking for it and you had not found it until this event.
Exactly.
Dude,
yes.
Tell me this is not meant to be. I'm getting the chills listening to you.
Yeah, so it was definitely a godsend, whenever I went there. And then he's like, oh, I have a prep center. I do this. And I'm like, okay, well, what could you do for volume? And then we start talking. And like I said earlier, we worked out rates. And I said, well, this makes sense for me. If it makes sense for you, he said, I'm good with it. Okay, let's give it a shot. So I sent him a truck last week, 26 pallets full of toys, and we'll see how it goes. But in the meantime, that's cleaned out tons of space in my barn. So now I can focus on other areas of my business. So now the toys, he's handling all the toys. Now I can focus on the clothing and stuff that I buy from another vendor that I can't send to a prep center because it involves a lot more work.
But it allows you to focus. And so so it's not all, and here's another pro tip from Trevor. It's not all or nothing what you're describing.
Exactly.
You're segmenting, you're basically fixing a segment of your business so you can focus on another segment. And then eventually, if that can get figured out, right, that would be another. I mean, oh, dude.
Right.
Oh, now I see why she had you on stage. I get it. It's true, though. Trevor flies below the radar. It's true, right? I mean, that's not unfair. It's true. I mean,
I try to fly below the radar as much as I can.
Smart.
I mean, because that's just for me. It's not about publicity and oh man, look at how good I'm doing. At my age or whatever. I don't care about that. I mean, there's people doing way better than me. That's great. But there's also people that aren't doing as good as me. And so I know starting out, it was a lot different 5 years ago, but I was in college doing it. And so, if I can do it, other people can do it too. And if I can help them in any way, then I try to just share my story and say, don't do what I did on these mistakes, and it'll save you a lot of money.
Who's your mentor? I mean, when you think about where do you get your advice from that you take action on? Because everybody gives advice, but where's the advice that you find yourself taking action on come from?
Well, oddly enough, I would say probably my uncle and my dad. Because obviously my uncle, we sell together. So he understands Amazon. He's very good at buying. He's one of the original ones. Him, my grandpa, my dad taught me eBay and garage selling back in the day. So they helped get me started. And then, for Amazon related stuff, I use him as a soundboard. And then, I'm more of a calculated, I don't say like risk taker. I'm a calculated risk taker. And my parents are not a risk taker at all. They're the get a degree, go work corporate for 30, 40 years, work your way up the ladder, not hardly any risk. And so I use my parents as a soundboard, as kind of the devil's advocate on that side of the business. So, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, like when I was talking about the barn and stuff like that, he would be my soundboard and my dad would be like, well, I think you should do it this way or do it this way. Like, what about this? Have you thought about that? And it just, having those two different soundboards, you kind of, not one way is going to be the correct way. It might be, okay, so that's something I need to think about. But if I approach it this way, I should be able to take out and not have to worry about what they were concerned about. So I think they're both kind of mentors in that perspective. And, just there's lots of people that I watch and, there's tons of people. Like now that I started private labeling, Andy, LaRon, and Nathan and all of them, they've helped me out tremendously on the private label side of my business.
We're talking about Amazing Freedom. If anybody didn't catch that, was Andy Slamans, LaRon Hirschkorn, and Nathan Slamans. So Amazing Freedom, they're amazing. Can I dig in there for a second? Because somebody just asked me a question about that. Now, you've been in that group for how long?
Probably about a year, getting close to a year now.
And you took action, so let's qualify that. Mm-hmm. But when you went back for help, because this is one of the things I tell people when they say, hey, Steve, what's the best group to get into? I'm always like, look, who do you connect with, right? Who do you think is genuine for you, right? Because some people are, matter by the book and they just need the instruction manual. Other people need hand-holding. Other people need whatever. They just need to be able to get an answer answered or a question answered, right, when they need it, not wait 6 years for a response, right?
Right.
that group, and I'm in it, so I see people asking questions. I see once in a while you post stuff. Are they the most phenomenal answering people you've ever seen in your life? I'm convinced none of them sleep. I'm convinced, well, Andy I know does sleep because I know it. We were talking yesterday about naps. He was telling me about naps. He's like, Steve, you need to take a nap. Anyway, but Laurent, Yoda, as I call him, never sleeps. He's like a bat or something. And then Nate is just as bad. But it's true. Fair?
It is fair, yeah. And they're great people. They reply to your messages, and I think where I first met you on their weekend private retreat.
Yeah, that was in Denver, yeah.
Yeah, so, my dad, being the devil's advocate, was like, oh, I don't think that's worth it for a weekend. You're going to pay how much? Like, that's not worth it. And then for me, I'm looking at, okay, all I need is one product and it pays for this. Or, I'm looking at it as what information can I gain that I can then make money off of. So, when I went to the retreat, just the tips and tricks that I learned there, I then applied to my I have one private label brand that I had been doing. It wasn't anything spectacular, but it was a slow, steady sell, and that's just how it was for 2 years. I applied that to that business because it was already going, and it like did 30 or 40% more in profit, from then on in terms of every month. And
so
then,
you got your money back right away.
Yeah, so I got my money back, and then, I went around asking each one how they source product, because my biggest problem starting out was I just had a difficulty sourcing product. I didn't understand how to do it, and nothing I could do, nothing clicked. And so finally, I think it was like the last night, I was with Laurent, like 10:30 at night, and he walked me through his process. And everybody's process is different. They might not have the same process. And whatever he said, it just like clicked in my brain. And so we found a product, and I was sitting at that kitchen table, messaging the supplier at 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I was up for several hours going back and forth because they didn't want to sell it to me, because they already had somebody selling on Amazon. But eventually I broke through, and now I ran out of stock last year. And so I just got more stock in. In May, I sent the products in. I kind of did a relaunch without giving away any products. And, I did like $15K in revenue last month off one product.
Off that one product. And you got to use that college education, that understanding of logistics. Once Liron clicked something and probably spoke in Yoda terms, he spoke a different language that you understood, nerd language for you two, because you're both nerds. And you guys spoke whatever that language is, and it connected, and it was like releasing a dam. And so to me, that's what that group does. That's what those events do. I've seen so many people with the light bulb go off. And yeah, Steve's pitching their stuff because I believe in it. And I say that, and I'm not bragging, I turn away 90%. I got somebody else trying to come on right now, a PR person trying to pitch me on their person, why they're the best thing. I filter out most of them because I got to see it. I want to see it over time because I'm so worried about giving you bad advice, Trevor. You know what I mean? That doesn't wear on your soul very well. I've been that guy. I'm not going to be that guy again. And so that's why when I hear a success like this, when I hear of somebody connecting and then following through and then getting, gives me the tingles, dude. But again, I think it's well-deserved. I think all this stuff that you've been doing with your head down, doing the work, working with your uncle, learning, advancing, and then putting yourself out there, which to me is the biggest takeaway I'm going to take away from this conversation, is that Trevor stuck himself out there, giving without expectation, and he's been rewarded tenfold. Let's finish up. When I think about, you would not call yourself a risk-taking entrepreneur. You've already said you're risk-averse, right? You're not totally against risk. You're just not a roll it all on 7, bet everything. What's your advice for new sellers that want to get into and grow their business? Maybe they're doing retail arb and they want to try to step into these worlds of wholesale or wholesale private label or in your model. What's your advice for them? Do you have any boundaries that you would say, hey, kind of hold these boundaries in for now, and then you can push them out later?
Yeah. So, like I said, I call it a calculated risk taker. I take risk all the time, but I run the numbers and make sure that, it's good for my business. It's good for my family. Like a big one, a lot of people don't talk about is cash flow. Mm-hmm. Know your cash flow. People will tell you, oh, it's bad to go into debt. Don't go into debt. Or they'll say, oh, who cares? Let's just go into debt. I think there is an equal medium. I don't think debt is bad as long as it is under control. So that being said, don't go take $100,000 in debt and only have $20,000 in inventory.
Or go shopping at ASD. Just take $100,000 and go walking around. All right, I got $100,000. What can I buy? What should I buy?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a bad plan.
Yeah. Don't always shop as if you don't have money.
Oh, that's a good piece of advice.
Because if you're shopping as you don't have money, you're going to go, okay, this is a really good deal. I'm going to make $6 off a $2 investment and it's selling quick. Okay. Then you go, I can get that money. And that's good. So if you shop that way versus if you go, oh man, I got $100,000 in the bank. I'm going to go walk in there and just, yep, that looks good. That looks good.
I'll take 6 of these, 12 of those, 12 of those. Yeah, that looks good too.
You walk in, oh crap, why did I buy all this junk? So I think starting out, if you're doing retail, that's great. Keep doing retail because that gets you cash flow, right? It keeps that cash flow coming in. But as you're doing it, refine your process and make smarter buys. You don't have to buy everything, and just because it's on clearance doesn't mean it's good.
Right. It's on clearance for a reason, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
It didn't sell.
So you're right. So if you want to do private label, look for a good course that's not overly priced that they're doing. Like we talked about Amazing Freedom. I've taken several courses and honestly, they are the best. They actually have a Facebook group. They actually answer your questions. I've been to other ones that are a lot bigger that even hold their own conferences, and they don't. The owners of that conference or that course, they hardly ever answer any questions. Yeah. You can't private message them. So I think looking at what fits your business is best. And another thing is, a lot of people starting out get sucked into this whole mindset of, oh, I have to buy a course for everything, or I have to buy this software. Make sure you keep your monthly expenses in check. You don't have to have every piece of software. Sometimes it's better to do that stuff manually for a while so you understand it on the back end. And then once you have enough revenue and profit, then you do it. Which that's the thing a lot of people don't talk about is they brag about their numbers. Well, who cares if you did $6 million if your net profit's 6%?
Right. Oh, I'm so with you. But we're one of the few that say it's 17 to 20%. And then others say, that's a terrible business. You should be doing 30 or 40%. I'm like, man, that's good for you. But I've got a warehouse, I've got workman's comp, and I've got insurance.
Exactly.
I've got all these different things. When you look back, did you have any clue that you'd be able to kind of leapfrog? Because that's what it seems to me. This is Steve's observation. You seem to be leapfrogging. It's like you pulled back and you, again, I describe it this way. You kept your head down, did the work, studied, invested smartly, lined up with the right people. It sounds like you and your uncle are just perfect alignment there. And then you start branching out. And then it just seems like you've jumped ahead. Like all of a sudden it's like you're slow. And then boom, you're 3 or 4 steps ahead. And then you slow down. And then did you ever think you would get there? Because it's hard, right? When you're starting out, you're like, oh man, I see all these numbers from everybody else. And you're like, oh my God, I'm terrible. I suck. Trevor, I'm bad.
Yeah. No. And to hit the 7-figure mark or over 7 figures, it took 4 to 5 years of hard work and grind.
Wait, nobody says that. If you can't do it in a month, you're out, right? It's failure.
Exactly. Yeah. All the people you hear like, oh man, in 18 months, you can do 7 million or $1 million plus too. Well, chances are they just got lucky. Well, I mean, I can hit $1 million easily and I can lose money.
Right. Right.
Does that make me good? Well, no. So it goes back to the whole profit thing. There's a lot of people out there, they are doing that. In 18 months, they're hitting over $1 million. That's great. But don't always have an end goal in mind. So like one person I've started following recently, I'm not sure if you've heard of him, is Grant Cardone.
Oh, I know Grant. I do. I'm 1 degree from him. I actually know somebody who knows him. Yeah.
So, I mean, his philosophy is great. I mean, when you're setting goals, he has a whole 10X, which if you haven't read the 10X rule, his book, that's a very good book on mindset. But, for him, you set goals. So like for me, if I set a goal, I don't set a goal of, I'm going to do 2 million this year. You set a range. I'm going to do a goal between 2 to 3 million. That's my revenue goal this year. Because once you get closer, you hit 2 million, in your mind psychologically, what's going to push you to go further? Versus if you say, I have 2 to 3 million, you go, I hit 2 million. Nice. I still have time. I'm going to shoot for as far as I can get to 3. And
that's
so
like a stretch goal right there, right? That's the stretch.
Exactly. So, starting out, you gotta do the work. A lot of people think it's easy. A lot of people make it seem like it's easy.
Right. That's true.
But it's really not. I mean, it's work. It's not like you're just going to sit there and do whatever. Now, maybe 5-10 years down the road, when you have everything outsourced and everything is going great, then yes, you can take and get some of that time back, just like I did the toys.
The 4-hour work week can start then, but you got to get all the work. Even Tim Ferriss would say there was a lot of work to get to that 4-hour work week, which
exactly.
What about personal habits? So, I was thinking about, I usually ask, my closing question is usually to say, hey, give me a way to improve, but I just think you did that. I think you went right through a perfect example of what people should do. So what I'm going to close with, after I get your contact information, what I want to close with is the basic things that you do, your personal habits that you use to contribute to your success that you think others could benefit from. Because again, I use this, I think you and, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on his name, is another, Todd Lammy's another one. They just put their head down and do the work, stay below the radar, and then all of a sudden they pop up and you're like, whoa, how did he get that far ahead? Whoa, how did he do that? And again, it's these personal habits. And I think that that's where others could use some benefit, and I think you could offer some.
Yeah, so a lot of it is, like we've talked about, it's just grind and hustling. I always like to say, I'm hustling, getting it done. Because I'm young, I'm like, I'm just going to push as hard as I can.
Rub it in. Go ahead.
Because an older person, they maybe have worked for 20, 30 years. I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying an older person. That could be 30,
Oh,
about
dude. Oh, my God.
So
did you just say 30 years old?
No, I said older.
Oh, okay. Kelly Loach will appreciate this. I have socks older than that. And, let me tell you my Kelly Loach story. He sent me socks. He's like, Steve, you never said thank you for the socks. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, I sent you socks. I'm like, Kelly, I received so many packages of socks. I had no idea. And it felt terrible. I apologize to him every time I see him about these socks. So I have socks older than 30. So go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. So, I think just, pushing and pushing. And, a lot of people get discouraged if they're older. They're like, oh, man, I just can't do it like these younger people, or I'm not that good. That's not true. I mean,
your uncle's a good example.
Yeah, my uncle's a great example. He's a lot older than me, and we're doing just great. Now he's in a different point in his life than I am, and that's how it all is. Some people, they want to get to a certain level and they just want to maintain that level, because they don't want to get bigger. They don't want the stress, the headache, all that stuff of everything else. Where somebody in my shoes, I'm like, dude, let's just push this thing as big as we can get it. And
do you pull stuff from him and him pull stuff from you strength-wise? Is that part of what you get from that partnership?
Yeah. So, minus the buying power and stuff, he's had 30 years or so of experience in buying stuff. So he is very good at looking at something going, oh, that might be good. Or, oh, hey, I think this will be good. I mean, he tells me on stuff like, oh, this will be good because of this reason. I'm like, no, there's no way. And then it turns out that he's right.
So he's drawing back on his experience, and you get that benefit. So there's
Exactly.
there's part of what personal habit that could be is connect with somebody, kind of back to that whole meetup, and we're back to working with people and relationships, but and then draw against that. I think that's a powerful thing right there.
Right.
When so when you think about what others should do today, and I guess I'm gonna still hold you to this one because I don't think you did answer, because you're not giving away your secret sauce. You're pushing. Where do you get that strength from? Because I know it's just not youth, because we are all young, and that we were usually stupid when you're young. So so what else do you do though, Trevor, that people can do? I mean, are you using some kind of calendar? I'm looking for something technical, because I just don't want people to leave here. We talked a lot of good stuff, and we gave them really great stuff, but I want them to take action. I mean, I just feel like you taking action, going up on that stage has done all this for you. You partnering with your uncle, you being consistent through life, and then this person watching, like you said, you never know who's watching you from a side, and the opportunity just fell in your lap. And it didn't just fall in your lap. Of course, it's been prepared for. But I'm just saying, I want people to be able to move forward. So I want you to give us something that you're doing that others can benefit from. I'm going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
Are you staying up late, getting up early? Are you using some kind of systems or anything? Or are you magic?
No, I'm not magic, that's for sure. I really don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it is, I worked corporate for 2 years out of college. And, I grew my Amazon business at the same time. And there came a point where I had to make a choice. Do I keep working these ungodly hours? I mean, I was getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. Do I keep working these crazy hours, at my real job, 12-hour shifts, and then come home and do Amazon? Or do I pick one or the other? And so, I think me seeing the corporate side of things and how I would work my butt off, and I'd be doing other people's jobs, and then I wouldn't even get rewarded. They're like, okay, good job. Thank you.
Yep. See ya.
And so I didn't get a pay raise, a bonus, which, I mean, you shouldn't do everything in life for a pay raise or bonus, but out of the 2 years, I didn't get a single one of either of those. So for me, I'm like, that's kind of weird. So I had to make that again, calculated risk, and it was a lifestyle change. Do I want to keep doing that, or do I want to take this Amazon, since it's at the same level as what I'm getting paid at my full-time corporate job, or do I take it and I try to do this? If I'm only spending half of the time or a quarter of my time on my Amazon business, and I'm already at the same level as corporate, what if I did it full-time?
So there's the lesson. There's the habit. There it is. You're filtering, and you said it, I just didn't hear it. It took you to explain it that way for me to hear it again. You're filtering everything in some way through your risk meter and calculating it out, and then boom, taking action. So there it is. So you listener, have to develop your risk program, your risk model, if you will, and then filter everything through it. I like
exactly.
it.
And everybody's going to have a different level of risk tolerance.
Yeah.
There'll be some people that they don't want to do it. Like my parents, they have no risk tolerance really. And then there's me that I'll do some. And then there's other people like, I'll just go do risk everything. So you have to, like you said, you have to get your risk meter and figure out at what level, what are your maximum risk amounts that you're willing to take. And, it all depends. And, when I found out when I went full-time Amazon, I was able to double my business in the remaining 6 months of the year because I was able to vote my time towards retail or whatever that was.
And then you replicate it. As I sit and think about this, you just replicate it by outsourcing your toys. You just explained that now all of a sudden you can focus on this other segment of your business because you figured out you're a process guy. I guess we're back to how we started the full conversation. You got something from that college degree, didn't you? You got the process. Yep. You got the value from it. And yet, it's kind of a little funny to say, you have a degree and working with the ocean in northern Texas, far away from there, and it applies to your Amazon business. See, to me, that's what people have to figure out. They have this stuff in their background, somewhere in their life, their experiences, their college or whatever, but it's relevant somehow to this world. And if you can use that, you have a big competitive advantage. Dude, I'm pumped for you. I can't wait to see what comes next. Very excited about it. So if somebody has a follow-up question, Trevor's very generous. He's shy, but he's very generous, as you hear. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably just say Facebook.
Okay, and I'll put the Facebook link there.
Yeah.
Trevor Morris, you blow me away. You popped your head up. I saw you, and I am so impressed. It's just so cool to watch somebody who deserves it, deeply deserves it, and your uncle because he's cool too. You deeply deserve it, and it's just so cool to see somebody winning who does. So very, very cool. I wish you nothing but success, my friend.
All right, well, I appreciate you having me on.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Again, great guy. I told you, I love that. I pushed him at the end, and I'm sorry, Trevor, I did, but I just want to make sure that you get value at the end. I'm used to asking that question at the end, and he answered it earlier at my bequest, but it really is important that, you move forward and you see somebody like Trevor who does make it sound like it's easy, and he would tell you it's not. It took him 5 years to hit that level of success. Well, that means for 4.5 or 4 3/4, he was just as frustrated as you might be right now. And so the lesson there is it's a long game. You want to set up your business in the long game mode. His advice about staying in retail arb, and if that's what you're doing, do it, get the cash flow, but invest in something. And I've seen some people investing in businesses outside of Amazon or outside of eBay. I think it's smart. I've heard laundromats. I've seen real estate being flashed around. I've seen a whole bunch of a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of my friends are selling mattresses. And if that works, that is awesome. The difference is you're doing it. You're executing. That's it. That's what it's going to take. And you heard that from Trevor here. It's by putting the work in. It's by putting your head down and doing the work. That's how you're going to win. And so I just think he's such a great example of what we should strive to be. So I salute you, Trevor, and I want to be like you. Ecommercemomentum.com, ecommercemomentum.com. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast. All the links mentioned today can be found at ecommercemomentum.com under this episode number. Please remember to subscribe and like us on iTunes.